Welcome to the Only God Stories podcast, where we believe testimonies are powerful. In this podcast, your faith will be built as we hear from people from all walks of life who recognize the power of God in their lives. To hear more testimonies or for the opportunity to share a story of your own, check us out on our website at onlygodstories.org.
Everybody, welcome to the Only God Stories podcast. My name is Joseph. I'm excited for you to be here. I'm with my wife, Tiffany, as always, excited to be able to have here. And we have an incredible guest today. We have Jeremy and Caleb Freeman. And if you don't know who Jeremy and Caleb Freeman are, don't worry. We're going to get all caught up in just a moment. But I'll just start with this. I've known Jeremy, we were just talking about it a moment ago, for almost 22 years. He was my student pastor back in the day. But he is a father, a husband. He leads a church in Newcastle, Oklahoma. And they've got a story that God continues to be able to write, and we are so excited to be able to have them on. So, Freemans, welcome to the podcast.
Man, thank you guys for having us. We're so honored to be here. Right, Caleb?
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We're excited having it.
Absolutely. So let's do this. Let's give some type of context. Jeremy, why don't you just tell the listener kind of just who you are, where you guys are at, what you guys do now, and then we'll dive in and see what the Lord wants to do.
Yeah, you bet, man. Again, I'm Jeremy Freeman, and my son Caleb. My wife and I, Emily, we've been married for almost 25 years. We have 7 children, and our oldest is 23. She just got married in May, and our youngest is 8. So our life is chaos. It's chaos.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
We have, one of our children is with the Lord. We may talk about him a little bit. So we have 6 that are still with us on the earth. But I've been in ministry full-time for 25 years. I've done student ministry. I was an associate pastor. I've been the lead pastor here in Newcastle for almost 15 years. And I grew up in Texas, went to school in Oklahoma. My wife wrote me in. My family's mad because they think I should still be in Texas, but here we are in Oklahoma. So
everybody upgrades.
That's what I call God's country, Oklahoma.
That's like
I think that's a good snapshot for us. I will say there's a story that I have about you or with you, Jeremy, when I was a teenager.
Yep.
Infamy for
it's disturbing,
about
Jeremy.
2 days ago.
Oh, man.
He told our son
told my
this.
son, I looked at him and I said, "Hey, Jackson," he's 9 years old. I said, "Jackson, I want you to know something." I said, "There was a time when I was a teenager and I ate peanut butter out of a guy's armpit.
That's true.
That armpit was yours." And that,
messed
getting strict cred.
We did these student ministry things 20 years ago. We'd never do them now.
Never do now. No.
Back in the day, I'm like, what did I was like thinking?
Now.
Yes, exactly. There's probably some of that, but we'll leave the rest of those stories alone for today.
Caleb,
but
you should absolutely be questioning your father's life choices right now, Caleb.
I'm like, you really did that? I did that, kid. Wait, we can reenact it later. I'll have him eat out of my own.
I gotta give a hard pass on that one.
Hard pass, yeah. I think that's a great idea. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump in and hear just a little bit more about your story. And Caleb, if I forget, I got to make sure that I highlight your sneaker game because you've got great shoes. I just got to say that out of the gate. You've always got something good on. But why don't you do this, Jeremy? Can you just take us back to 2017? And this is after years of a lot of heartache, a lot of struggle, from several different situations. And why don't you just take us into that day and tell us a little bit of the story and probably the primary purpose we're on the podcast today.
Yeah, it was December 19th, 2017. I'm a pastor. I'd done a funeral that morning. The funeral director said, "Hey, I've got 2 tickets to the University of Oklahoma basketball game. Do you want those?" I couldn't go because I was supposed to be taking our little kids to look at Christmas lights that night. My wife was having a Christmas party at our house. So I called Caleb. He had varsity basketball practice that morning. They were on winter break. I said, "Do you want these 2 tickets?" Trae Young was playing for OU at the time. He's now in the NBA.
Good.
Everybody wanted to see him. So Caleb said, "Yeah, I want them." I said, "Well, I got to go get the tickets." I said, "Meet me at this restaurant. I'll give them to you." He was driving. I said, "Get your younger brother, Clayton." He was 14. And I said, "I'll meet you." And as I pull into this restaurant parking lot, and there's Caleb in his truck with his brother, and it started raining. He rolled down the window. I gave him the tickets, made sure they were buckled. And literally, he went 10 minutes one way and I went 10 minutes the other. And I walked into my house and my phone rang and it said Caleb Freeman. So I answered it and there was a man on the other line. And I was like, hey, who is this? And he said, sir, do you have two sons? And I said, hey, wait a minute. Why do you have my son's phone? He said, do you have two sons? I said, yes. He said, well, they've been in an accident. How quickly can you get here? And there was something about that made me feel like, okay, this is more than a fender bender, but I wasn't sure. Right. And as we're driving to the accident scene, he kept calling me. And every time he called me, I got a little bit more nervous because I kept saying, let me talk to Caleb. I heard Clayton's voice in the background, so I knew he was okay, but they wouldn't let me talk to Caleb. He finally said, sir, I'm not a medical professional, but I can tell you your son is still breathing. And I was like, what?
Oh, gosh.
What are you talking? And guys, I had literally just seen Caleb. Like, it was such a surreal moment. I was like, this can't possibly be happening. So we get to the accident scene, and there's a semi-truck, 75,000 pounds, had T-boned Caleb directly on his side. There were two ambulances, and Caleb was in one, and Clayton was in the other. So we went over to see Clayton. He had a concussion. He was kind of in and out. He was in shock, didn't remember the accident. But they wouldn't let us go see Caleb because we didn't know it, but they were resuscitating him. They had put in a breathing tube, and he had suffered a severe traumatic brain injury.
Wow.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Man, that's obvious. That's big. So take us kind of in that's huge. Yeah. That's an understatement. So Caleb gets taken in the ambulance. Clayton gets taken in the ambulance. So you have two kids that are on their way to what you think is just the next hospital up, but they end up going to OU Medical Center. Is that right?
Yeah, they go to the trauma center, which I didn't notice at the time.
Trauma center.
And there was a hospital real close there in Norman, but the fact that they took him to the trauma center tells you it was more of a severe injury, which I didn't know that. So, and I don't know how much you wanted me to go into all this, but I mean, God just really stepped in. Like we had lost a son 4 years before this to cancer. So we had already had some serious heartache in our life. And we know what it's like to lose a child. And we felt like Caleb was right there on the brink. So we get to the ER and we're panicked. And this woman comes running in the ER about 15 minutes after we got there. She had blood all over her. She was wearing a white outfit.
Oh, goodness.
And I was like, she came up to us and she said, are you Caleb's parents? We said, yes. And she goes, my name's Jolinda. She's now become a friend. She said, I'm a certified CPR trained instructor. I saw the accident. She goes, I ran across the highway to help. She was the third person on the scene. So she got there before the ambulance. She said, I want you to know, I stopped the bleeding on Caleb. I cleared his airway. She doesn't even know us. And she said, I want you to know something. I'm a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. She goes, I prayed for your son from head to toe, and God has told me your son is going to live. I mean, that's a bold thing to tell somebody in a moment.
In a trauma center.
In a trauma
blood all over you.
Yep.
And you
so all of a sudden, they're not giving us any information on our son. I pulled this nurse to the side. I said, ma'am, can you give me an update? And she said, I don't know how to tell you this, but your son needs a miracle. And I literally fell to the ground. The thought of losing Caleb was unbearable to us. And I got my phone out. I sent a message to my family, my friends, and I said, here's what the doctors are saying. And I typed in 2 words. And the words were, but God, you can see it on the shirt. I never knew that it would be on a T-shirt or on the cover of a book. At that point, we were saying, if God doesn't step in, Caleb is gone. And the doctor told us they were going to take part of his skull off and put a tube in and drain the fluid off the brain. They were going to have to do all these things. And I'll never forget this doctor. He looked at me and he said, sir, I'm going to do everything I can to support your son. He said, but I got to be honest, we don't expect him to live through the night. So Caleb's brain was swelling so fast, they didn't think they'd be able to stop it. And Caleb was in a coma, man, for 8 long weeks, did not respond at all.
8 weeks.
Eli, what do you say about this?
I'm sorry. I feel like those interruptions.
You should interrupt.
I mean,
Quickly.
I just realized I forgot to remember, but guys,
You forgot to let it back.
where's just
Only the people on YouTube.
It's available in every color on the website, and we will put that in the show notes. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Now, Caleb, stay with me because what? So you were in a coma. What do you say about the coma?
Yeah, like the first thing I'll say is the coma, like, it was like one of the best naps I've ever taken in my life. It was pretty great. But then whenever I was coming out of the coma, I didn't I wasn't able to retain that much memory. And so, like, people were saying a lot of stuff to me, like doctors, nurses, and just other people. And they were stacking all these odds against me. Caleb would never walk again. Caleb would never talk again. Caleb would never eat again. And like every single time, it looked pretty hopeless at that time. But I was always quick reminded. People might say stuff in my life, but God will always have the final say.
That's
God has the final say.
Amen.
That's right.
Yeah, he does.
Right. Amen.
And Caleb, I just want to hear even more from you in this, because while you were in a coma during this time of the story that your dad's talking about, but as I'm kind of picturing of being your parents being at the hospital, your dad being at the hospital, and hearing some people say the earthly wisdom of he's probably not going to make it through the night, and then you have another nurse or whoever it was saying, I prayed and I believe he's going to be alive and he's going to survive this. And I know even from the book that you have, Jeremy, you talk about how your wife and things that she wrote, and I just want to know from you, Caleb, what does it feel like having people who were like spiritually knowing? Like, did that help you in your recovery? They spiritually knew that you were going to be used. They knew that you were going to survive. How does that speak to your heart?
No, it's helped so much, because I know it's easy to say, like, yeah, I believe Caleb was going to wake up from this coma. Like, after I already woke up. But the fact that people were saying, like, I believe Caleb's going to wake up and God's going to use him, and he's still in a coma state right now, looking for hopeless in this earth eyes. It showed me, like, the fact that people have those words given them by God, it showed me, like, it gave me faith. It helped increase my faith that God was going to do something bigger than I could see.
That's right.
Amen.
Yeah,
Praise God.
Yeah, people stepped in, and we write about it in the book. There was lots of different ways God did that, but God was letting my wife and I know that he was doing something different with Caleb's life. That's why Emily started journaling. Like the night of the wreck, she starts writing stuff down because she was like, God told her he was going to use Caleb for something greater. And we moved our whole family to Denver, Colorado about a month after the wreck. We were at a specialty hospital there. Caleb would just sit in his wheelchair and stare all day, every day. And then one day, his occupational therapist said, Caleb, can you nod your head? Yes. We asked him to do that every single day. But 8 weeks after the wreck, she said, Caleb, can you nod your head? And what'd you do? He nods his head like a ball.
Yeah.
Now he can do it so easy. But back then, that was a huge miracle. The fact that he responded. Yeah. So that's when God decided to wake him up.
Oh, praise God. Now, I think this is important to note. I know Emily can't be on the podcast today, but Jeremy, will you just even give some perspective of how critical she was in this? You talk about it in the book of some of that kind of foundational piece that she was and having the faith. So will you just let us in on that side and just what her faith meant in this journey?
Yeah, Emily, Caleb and I talk about Emily. She's like the rock, and I've never seen my wife panicked really in her life, except when we were driving to the hospital. She was out of control. I mean, we were begging God to heal Caleb. But once we got there and God started stepping in, Emily will tell you, it was like God just told her, I'm doing something different. And Emily has had that steadiness through this whole journey. I'm kind of the high and low guy. I'm the emotional guy, right? And Emily's more of she keeps her cool. And I can't even articulate with words how important Emily is in this journey, because I mean, God's used her in incredible ways. There were times that, man, all of us wanted to give up. When Caleb was in the coma and he was doing all the stuff, and it's been so hard, all these years of recovery, and God has really used Emily to be that anchor to our family that we all desperately need. I mean, the ultimate anchor is Jesus Christ. He's the one we're building our life on, but she, from an emotional maturity, stability standpoint, she's the sanity to our craziness. Let's say it like that.
And like something else I was saying about my mom.
Yeah.
It's like when I was in high school, I was falling into a lot of the snares to compare.
Yeah,
a lot of people around me were like playing sports, doing the things I wanted to do. and they weren't living for Jesus. So I never understand that because there was me who was trying to live for Jesus, and I had the brain injury, so I understand. But it just showed me like sometimes like people be allowed to live these, the devil allowing these people to live these great lives because he knows they'll never find God that way. But I know through my struggles and suffering, like I've been able to see God in a whole way I would have never been able to see him without. And I'm thankful for the struggles.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Amen. And Caleb, what I love is even in the book, it talks about this, and I know we've highlighted a lot, so you should go get it if you're listening. It's on audio and as well as digital, or audio, digital, all those things.
And also, I know the author, and he's a pretty good guy.
He's got this weird peanut butter story, though. I heard about it. Caleb, what I love in the book, it talks about how you were asked the question of if you were to go back to that night, would you change anything?
Yeah.
Can you just tell our listeners what did you say? Do you remember exactly what you said there?
Yeah. Like, that question was kind of coming off guard because, like, my speech therapist asked for all the questions before. I worked on those, but then whenever the interviewer came, she asked a complete different set of questions. So I just answered them on the moment.
That's right.
But I remember that question. She was like, if you could go back to that day, like, would you change anything?
Yeah.
It just showed me, like, no, not all, because I look at, like, everything that God has locked up into my life. So sorry, it's been really cool. But that stuff I get potentially resent and beg God to change. What I've seen to get in the journal and speak and see people come to Jesus from after hearing of the suffering I thought I had. It shows me God's doing something bigger with this wreck.
Yes.
Because that doesn't just momentarily change their lives. That changes their lives for all of eternity.
Right.
And that's something I want to be a part of changing my whole life.
That's right.
So good, Caleb.
Good.
And that's a word for somebody out there today. Like whatever you're going through, don't trade it because it can be used and you can use it. And something you'll hear me say a lot, especially I've already said it a couple of times on this podcast, is how, we have the Holy Spirit living in us. Like we have the power to take something that may have even been meant for evil and to use it for good. And like using things for good through the Holy Spirit in you, like that's just like that marks you, Caleb and Jerry and your entire family. And
Thank you.
It's been inspiring. I know that we've been watching your story, or I've been watching. Joseph knew you, but I've been just really in the background watching your story since we were praying for Trey, and then through all of this, we've definitely been ones that are following along with you. And I just love how that marks your family is are people that you're gonna use this for good because God's with you, and you have that power within you. So yeah, we're in for somebody today. And I just want to hear more because you mentioned it, Caleb, how people are coming to know Jesus through your story. 5 years later, can you imagine like everything that God has done through you and in you and through your family and in your family? Just give us an even should I say brief? That's you can go a long time talking.
Oh, yeah, I can go down a rabbit trail pretty good.
I'll set Caleb. I'll set him up because
I got this.
He just got it. You guys need your own TV show.
I want to encourage someone today. It's like you would all have a story. It's different. Like anyone that's been saved, that's our testimony and that's our story to share because that's the story how God sought you out of everyone in the world and brought salvation to you. So what I would just encourage everyone is no matter how small you think your story is, you share it boldly with anyone and everyone you come in contact to, because you never know how God can use your little story to do big things in someone else's life.
That's right. Yeah.
And
And this year, man, it's like, actually this December will be 6 years since the wreck happened. So it's we never
6 years.
expected a ministry to be born out of this. It's like God has birthed ministry out of our suffering, and we try to tell people we didn't ask for it, we would not want that, but it's what God did. And this year alone, just in this year, we've seen over 2,000 people come to know Jesus just this year.
Wow,
So
this year.
Yeah, if you put all 6 years together, several thousand. And we've spoken in the smallest little church in Oklahoma, one of the biggest churches in Texas. We've spoken in prison. We've spoken in businesses. It's amazing the doors. I mean, if you would have known Caleb before the wreck, he was my most shy, quiet, reserved child. I mean, this guy was so afraid of talking to people. And God not only saved him, but then God changed him. And it's a great example of how God can use anybody to do anything when he chooses to. And, I get a front row seat to that every single day.
Like the thing I heard is, before God uses you, he changes you.
That's right.
And that's exactly what I've seen God do to my life, because I was just shy nobody, afraid to talk to anyone. And now God has turned me into this bold vessel for him, where I'm ready to share with anyone and everyone.
That's right.
That's amazing.
I love the boldness. The boldness that you have within you, Caleb, is inspiring to others and continues to inspire. And I love that within you. And Jeremy, I'd like to ask you, or just on your side, obviously you've got a different perspective than where Caleb's at. Like, just what has this done in you? I mean, that's maybe a large question based on the journey and the season, several seasons that kind of overlap. But what has this done within you?
Yeah, it's hard to it is hard to describe, because when our son Trey passed away, a part of me died that I know won't be healed until I get to heaven. So for the last 10 years, I've had to live with this hole in my heart that God is healing, and God has used Caleb's wreck in my life, honestly, to resurrect some things that had died. And for instance, in 2013, we had 3 major deaths right in a row. My 85-day-old nephew, my wife's mom, and our son. I did all 3 of those funerals. And I kind of got to the place where I just believe God doesn't ever heal anymore. He always heals the believer in heaven, but I just thought maybe he doesn't heal on earth anymore. And God has used Caleb's journey to remind me that God doesn't always heal on earth, but sometimes he does. And it's changed my prayer life. It changes the way I minister to people. Caleb and I make a lot of hospital visits, and we walk in there and we pray and we believe that God could heal that person fully in that moment. We also know God may choose to do something else, but it's helped me with my perspective, my focus, my faith. Honestly, in every possible way that's good, it's helped me. Now, it's been challenging. I mean, man, I write very candidly in the book about my own struggles to believe sometimes, and the pain that you feel, the life you wanted for your kids that doesn't happen. So kind of releasing your desires to God's plans. But we always say that God's plans are better than our dreams. And I really do believe that. His plans are best. So that's just a little snapshot of how God has changed my life, man.
That's really powerful. Yeah. And God is doing so much in both of you and through both of you. Yeah. And I know that especially anybody listening to this, they're going to want to follow what you all are doing and what God is doing in you. So tell us, how can they do that? How can someone follow your ministry?
Yeah. So we have a website, brand new. It's called #butgod.com. You got to spell it out. So it's HASHTAGBUDGOD, butgod.com. And on there, it's got all of our speaking schedule. People can request us to come to their church. And we don't have a fee or anything like that. We just, if people reach out, if we're available, we'll make it happen. You can also order the book on there. You can order T-shirts and hoodies and things like that. But we have a Pray for Caleb page on Facebook. Yeah. I know not everybody has Facebook, but that page got developed early on in the journey because we were trying to have one spot to inform everybody about what was happening with Caleb. Yeah. And the Pray for Caleb page has about 100,000 followers. So we've hesitated to get rid of it. So we post a lot of updates there, videos, kind of reports about our journey. We give all kinds of updates on the Pray for Caleb Facebook page. So the website and the Pray for Caleb page are the two best ways to stay caught up with what we're doing in ministry.
Well, that's great. Well, Caleb, I think you need to give maybe the last answer for today before we wrap our time.
That's the word.
So, you know, sometimes they put somebody batting fourth, and it's because the home run's coming. So Caleb, we have this whole podcast set up for us to be able to celebrate just stories that they're only possible because of God, and to be able to remember those things. And so as our listeners listen and they have their own hopes and desires for God to do something, what would you encourage our listeners with today after your journey that you've gone through and are continuing to live out, not just in a survival, but a thriving? What would you encourage our listener with?
Yeah, just do the next right thing, because like big things, if you want to do something big in this world, it doesn't all just happen for you. It doesn't all just magically appear. It starts with just doing the next right thing.
Good.
And once you do that enough, it will build up, and soon you'll notice you're doing something way bigger than you ever could have done before.
That's a good word, man. That's a good word.
Praise God.
Good.
Yeah, I think that's a great word. And Caleb, one thing that I've discovered even in this time, and even from listening to the book, is that you've got a plethora of wisdom within your heart and your soul. There's definitely in there.
God given.
It's God given. I agree with that absolutely. And I'll leave everybody with this. There's one line Caleb said a moment ago was that God will change you before He uses you. And then there's another line in the book that says that one of God's favorite things to do is defeating the odds or beating the odds, and that was also from Caleb too. And so for our listeners today, if you feel like the odds are stacked against you, hey, you know what? One of God's favorite things to do is to beat the odds. And so that's what's happened on Caleb's journey. That's what's happened in the Freeman's family and their journey. We'll continue to be praying for them, but we'd love for you to be able to like and subscribe, as well as share with your friends, and continue to follow Jeremy and Caleb and the Freeman family and how God continues to use them in a strong and powerful way, and sometimes the unexpected as well. So, hey, thanks again for listening. We'll catch you again here in a couple weeks.
Thank you for listening to the Only God Stories podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media as we share more stories like these, and don't forget to check out our website at onlygodstories.org for more information on how you can share how the power of God has moved in your life.